Good afternoon and welcome to Delicious Cookery School down here at Delicious Gluten Free Bakery. Today we are making a recipe that I found by chance in the newspaper actually, and it's for a loaf that's really easy to make. I like easy batters that are easy to make, so that if you have someone coming around for coffee or you just want to make a little treat, that it's not a massive expedition, it's not a massive amount of work. So you can put a few ingredients together and it's really easy. This recipe uses natural yogurt, and you know, it's surprising, there's a lot of recipes out there that use a lot of cream cheeses and yogurts, and they're really worth considering because they're lovely and moist. You can do a lovely ricotta and blueberry loaf, which is a recipe my sister gave me, which is actually gorgeous. And I know the sound of ricotta cheese might not be something you associate with a cake, you might associate it with cannelloni, but actually really works very well. And another one like mascarpone is really good as well for a filling with icing sugar, and natural yogurt. And you know, we make a lovely bread with natural yogurt, which I'm sure you've probably seen on another video tutorial of mine. But today we're using natural yogurt again, and we're going to make raspberry and coconut cake. So we have some flour. Obviously, as with all things here, this is gluten-free flour. So this is our own delicious flour blend. The recipe is going to pop up on the screen to you there. But just so I have it here, and I'm sorry, I'm not very good at remembering it myself, 260 grams of flour. And we're going to put a tablespoon of baking powder, which is rather a lot, to be honest. I'm just going to pop that in. But you have a very dense recipe, and so to get a lift, you need that large amount of baking powder. Okay? So I'm just mixing the two of those together. And I'm going to pop in my caster sugar with this. So the usual with these batters is mix all the dry ingredients, mix all the dries, mix all the wet, and then one into the other. So it's kind of easy, okay? Now, I have the baking powder and the flour here, and I'm just going to actually sieve those before I add the caster sugar and the coconut, because the coconut, it's desiccated coconut, wouldn't fit through my sieve, obviously. So I just want to get a little bit of air into this. So obviously the whole point of sieving is that you want to get air through your flour, okay? My bowl's a little bit small. I think I'm being a bit ambitious, aren't I, with what I'm trying to do in there. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to transfer these into my big bowl. Just going to dirty every bowl that we have at the one time. Anyway, so that's going in there now, okay? So next I have my sugar. So this is caster sugar. I would really advise you to always use caster sugar when you're baking because it's finer. It's much finer. And this recipe calls for 110 grams. Now the caster sugar will go through the sieve quite easy, and I do like to sieve it just in case for any little bumps and lumps. So that's gone in there, and we're going to give that a bit of a stir. Okay, so just combining it all nicely. Oops. Not everyone is a fan of coconut. I think if you like it, you really like it. And if you don't, you just absolutely detest it. So this is for the fans. But you could leave it out, really. You know, you don't have to have it. You'd have to put in an equivalent amount of flour, I think. But the coconut does give a bit of moistness and a chewiness. But you could also maybe put some ground almond through it if you didn't want that. But anyway, look, that's a discussion for another day, isn't it? How to amend and change recipes. So coconut gone in. Okay, so all the dry ingredients in there now, I think. And because this is gluten-free, so this is just a recipe I found that I thought was nice, I'm just going to put the tiniest amount of xanthan gum. So as you know, all our free-from bakers, xanthan gum is, it just helps to bind and pull everything together. And I think when you take a recipe and you're converting it over to gluten-free, I always put a little bit in as a safety net. Not too much, because the whole thing will stick and get really tough and it won't rise, and you'll have a little thing more similar to a concrete block than a cake. But all I put in there now was a 1/4 teaspoon, which actually is quite a small amount. But just enough. It's already in the flour blend, but just to be safe. Okay, so that's my flour. I have my sugar, I have my coconut, and I have my baking powder. And so what I'm calling for now is I'm going to have 3 eggs, and I have 120 millilitres of my yogurt weighed out, and then on top of that I have my raspberries which is of only 125 of those and 120 millilitres of the oil. Okay, but the recipe's coming up there on screen, so don't worry. I shouldn't worry, I have them weighed out, so I don't need to be repeating them for you. Okay, so let's just get rid of our shells in here. So just show you my old trick of hitting one egg off against the other, so I don't have to be digging out all the shells. And then my last one I'm going to do this one. Okay, so 3 eggs. And what I'm going to do now is give them a little whisk up. And this whisk is quite big for this wee bowl, but for later on it'll be what I need. So I'm going to pop that there. So just give them a good old whisk around, okay? And it doesn't matter that there's a bit of flour in it from when I was messing with my bowls. Now, I'm leaving the raspberries until the end, and there's a reason for that. I'm just adding my yogurt here now. The raspberries, well, these are quite ripe, but the raspberries are delicate. And if I put them in with this and I mix, and then I put them in with the flour and mix, and beat, they will be absolutely pulverized, you know, and you will have a beautiful pink cake, will taste of raspberries, but won't actually have any raspberries in it. So, the point about this too is that it's nice to get a little bit of raspberry, a bite. So we're going to add them at the very end and delicately fold them in. Okay, so I'm just giving that a stir with the spatula. And then I'm going to give it another wee whisk with my oversized whisk for my little bowl. Okay. And then we're just going to add in my oil, which I weighed out and have lost. Where did I put my oil? Oh, here it is, sorry. Invisible in my pink bowl is my little bit of vegetable oil, or sunflower in my case. It's hilarious. You know, if you're wondering if you really need glasses, I think that's kind of living proof, isn't it? Bad enough not to recognise your husband at the end of the road, but to not see the ingredients under your nose. Good Lord. Anyway, we're in absolute denial here about eyesight, so we'll persevere and confuse all our ingredients and probably come up with some new amazing recipe in the meantime. Righto. So, with dry ingredients here, okay, so we're clear on what we have there. Flour, baking powder, coconut, and caster sugar. So that's that, okay? And then here now we have our wet ingredients. So we've the eggs, we've the yogurt, we've the oil, and then the raspberries are the only thing to go. Okay, so I'm going to add my wet into my dry, and I'm not going to stir it because I expect it to be quite lumpy. I'm going to whisk it. Now, oftentimes with gluten-free recipes, they're a batter. I'm just going to scrape this out. They just work as batters quite well. But I think the batters are really easy to do, you know, just get them together really fast. Now, okay, so gently does it with the whisk. You could do this on a little machine if you want, but to be honest, it's not that big of a deal. Sorry, making a mess as I go along. It's not that big a deal, you know, so you could do it quite easily by hand. I think if you feel you can throw it together by hand very quickly, that you're more inclined to do it than if it's a kind of an onerous task. And oh God, I have to get the mixer going now and all this. So I think that can be a bit off-putting for people. Now, you'd know I stole the whisk from downstairs in production because it's a bit big really for real life, isn't it? Anyway, okay, I'm going to switch over to this, which is a kind of a spatula spoon thing. Just get rid of any bits of flour that are up around, just making sure everything is all mixed in. And always check underneath. This is a kind of forgiving batter. It's not like a muffin, where muffins you have to be, you know, careful that you don't over stir. This is quite forgiving. Just make sure everything is mixed in here thoroughly, okay? Because the last thing you want is you're scooping it into your dish, and then you have this big ball of flour at the bottom and you're trying to mix it in and oh, it goes very wrong. So here are my raspberries, okay, so they're all a bit squashy because they're very ripe, and I'm just gently now going to fold them in. So I'm not mixing, I'm not beating hard, I'm just folding gently in and just trying to make sure that they're thoroughly put through the mix. But you see the way they're already starting to disintegrate and fall apart. That's what you don't want, you know. Okay, so easy peasy, done. Now, so to bake it, probably have enough here for a 2-pound loaf or maybe 2 of them. But I got these and I think they're gorgeous. These little baking trays from Italy. I'm falling in love with these guys. So I'm going to make little ones. which is nice because then you can give them to people. You don't have to be cutting a big one. So I know Dad's popping down later on, so he might take one home to Mum's for them to try. So we'll see. These actually are very handy as well because you don't have to grease them. You don't have to do anything with them, and they're bacon. But I should have them soon on our website. I think these are amazing. Look, aren't they beautiful? I just can't decide what colour I want to go with, but anyway, such are the dilemmas. Okay, so I'm going to scoop this in. We'll see how we go. And into these these aren't 1 pound dishes. These are quite small, aren't they? I actually have dinky little ones, which are for individual ones, but they're maybe a bit too small. The best thing is if you're baking them, you know, rather than doing, I'll do 2 big ones and 1 tiny one and 1 medium one, and then you're going to be stuck with the oven because they'll all be cooking at different times and be finished at different times. So better do them all the same size. Okay? So, and don't overfill because that will rise and we don't know how much it'll rise. So the last thing you want is you fill it to the top and the whole thing explodes and you have a right mess. So just see how we go. I wonder will we get 3 out of it? Possibly not. Now, what I might do is actually cheat so that we do get 3. But anyway, we'll see how we go with 2. First of all, I'll get 2 nice ones. And we'll worry about number 3. Okay. So, I find a palette knife is one of the handiest things. I think the 3 things you need in the kitchen: a palette knife, a whisk, not a monster whisk, a normal whisk, and a spatula of sorts. Like that's a kind of a weird kind of a neither here nor there thing. But I think with those 3 things, you're sorted. Now, I have a bit of mix left. Probably not enough to fill a whole one. So do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cheat and I'm going to pop in a couple more raspberries. That'll just bulk it up a little bit. So this is just, it won't make a difference to it. It'll just make it a bit bigger and we'll just fill it up. This now will be the fruity burst one. Let's hope that they're not bitter raspberries or it'll be very zingy, won't it? Raspberries can be a bit like that. Sometimes you think they're going to be really sweet and then they're just very bitter. Anyway, okay. This might be a baby one regardless of what I'm saying. It looks a bit small, doesn't it? And there's a bit of a, what's that? A little bit of a, sorry, small bit of a, oh no, it was just actually raspberry seed. We'll say nothing about the eyesight. Keep going. Right, so this is nearly done. So you see the spatula is very handy because you can scrape everything down. Whereas if you were doing it just with a spoon now, you wouldn't be able to do that, and you miss a lot of the mix, you know. It's just wasteful, really, which you don't need to be doing. Now, there we go. So actually, with that little bit of extra raspberry, we have 3. We'll cut this one now in a minute for the picture at the end for the shop. You'll be like, oh my gosh, look at all the raspberries, it's too much. Okay, so they're about the same size. You know, and it's like this, when you're at home, you can just do them by eye, you know, just look at them and make sure they look the same. It's different when you're downstairs in the bakery and you're selling them in shops. Everything has to be exactly the same weight, everything is weight. But here, we're just doing them for fun. So they're about right. Okay, so we're going to attack the oven next. So bear with me, I'm going to get myself a tray because these are a little bit wobbly. So I would put them on a tray before I would pop them in the oven. So just a moment and I shall be back. Righto, so I'll make a bit of space for myself before we get into the oven. So I'm using a tray. I will always use a tray for these little, any tins really actually, because it's easier to pull a tray out. But these guys are great, you know, the little baking things, but they're wobbly, you know, they are wobbly. Do you know what they remind me of is, you can get those great tin foil trays for Christmas, you know, for your turkey, and they're grand, but then they're kind of a bit, you know, precarious. So same here. Okay, so put my little 3 trays in it, and it's much easier now to lift this and to work with this so that you've just got one thing to be worrying about. Over to the oven. So this is my best friend. But this is a commercial oven, so you don't have one like this. I like to cook with steam as well as with heat. Now, I know some of the modern ovens have really funky settings on them, like I know a friend of mine has one, and you can put steam on it. But if you don't, if you just have a normal oven, whether it's a fan or whatever, I find that when you're cooking with all things free from gluten, wheat, like we're gluten and wheat free, not dairy free now with this, the steam helps. So what I would say to you is boil a kettle of water and get yourself a Pyrex dish, which is deep, not like that now, but a kind of a dish that size with a bit of depth to it. And I would boil your kettle and I would fill the dish in while you're at the oven so that you don't spill it and scald yourself. And so you've poured in the boiling water and you're leaving that at the bottom of the oven. And then you just carry on as normal on the trays above it and put your cakes in. But what happens is the steam, you're creating steam in the oven and it actually helps to give the cakes a lift. It's a little trick. So it works. So my one has the steam in it. I'm cooking at 165 because my oven's very hot and fast. I'd love to have one at home, but I don't. You need to be at about 180. Nice moderate oven. Okay, 200 is hot. 200 degrees, that's for pastry hot. This is 180, so moderate. Okay, so in we go. Over there this way. Now, I don't think these will take very long at all. So it depends. If you're doing little teeny weeny ones, they'll be done in 10 minutes. If you're doing a big 2-pound loaf, 40 minutes probably. So I'm just going to pop these in for 15 to 20 minutes and I'm just going to watch them and see, because I haven't made them in this size before, so I've actually no idea how long they'll take. So even when they look nice and browned, don't be fooled. You need to skewer them. Stick your skewer in, your pin and your knitting needle, and that needs to come out dry. Okay, so they'll be golden on top, but that needs to be dry. I also have this, and I really would encourage you to get one of these for any baking or cooking at home. I've made sure Mum has one and my sister has one. So basically it's a probe. So we use them commercially, but for home as well, so that you probe if you're cooking a chicken, probe it, and you know you want what temperature you want to get up to the high 70s, so that you know that it's cooked. So that's what like a piece of chicken. Here with a cake, we probe it, and you want to make sure that it's like 93, 94 degrees as an internal temperature. So pop it in. Watch this little digital one. Watch as the figures change and it comes up along. Tick, 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 tick. We'll do it now in a minute so that you can see. And then you know it's baked. So that's basically it. I mean, obviously, if your skewer comes out and it's wet, it's still liquid in the center and it's not baked. But this is great, and especially I think it's good if you're not confident with baking. It's just a great way to go, okay, look, I know now that's done. Great, that's done, we're okay. All right? Okay, back shortly. Now, so we're going to just check these. They look baked. I've been keeping an eye on them. But you need to know, to be sure. Now, close the oven. So, see, the raspberries can burn a little bit. Just leave that there. But I just want to check with my trusty probe, which really now, God love us, I've seen better days. Look, the temperature thingy comes out of it. I really do need to buy a new one. I promise I will. But anyway, okay. So just popping this in. And so the read is coming up here. So now it can be quite slow to go up, so don't worry. So I've gone from 23 degrees to 35 to 44. Just closing my oven, knock the house down. I'm at 59. Now a traditional way is you just probe it with a skewer or a knitting needle. Okay, that's the way we used to do it before we got all very scientific. But I just want to show you about this so that you know. So I'm up to 78 degrees, and this, to be honest, is an old probe. Like, so most of them would like bounce up very fast. I'm at 85, 82. If it starts crawling slowly, you know you're still a bit off-piste. Like now it's really slowed down, 84. So I know really the chances of hitting 94 aren't slow. But just poking in, like if you do it this way, this is your traditional way. Take it out, it's dry. But let's just see, for interest, what my temperature comes up to here now. It's dropping, ironically. So that's at 78. And let's just try this little one. So it's a little bit moist. So you know what I'm going to do? Back in, I'm going to turn the oven temperature down because see the way here it's the raspberries getting a bit black. I wouldn't worry about that anyway because we're going to have loads of icing sugar on it. But just, and the tray isn't that hot, so I was able to pick that up there now. Anyway, I'm going to pop it back in. I'm going to turn the oven temperature down 5 degrees. as I knock the oven off its stand. Turn it down 5 degrees, and I'm just going to give it maybe 3-4 minutes. And I'll check it again then. Like they're nearly done. I'm just at the last tiny bit of it. Okay? Righto, so these are out of the oven now, and they're cool. You see they do get a little bit misshapen, but that's all right, we'll forgive them that. The convenience of being able to bake them in a little dish that you don't have to oil and grease and paper is amazing. Anyway, so I've left them in the little wee bacon trays because I'm going to give 2 of them away. I'm not going to eat all 3, much as I might like to, but anyway, I'm going to give 2 away. So I'm going to ice and sugar those just to finish them, and we'll cut the other one there now in a second. But so that's all I'm doing. Just a little bit of ice and sugar and leaving them. I think they look gorgeous. I don't know, I've got a bit of a thing for ice and sugar. I think ice and sugar finishes everything, makes everything look beautiful. Look at that. Oh, I get a bit carried away too. I put too much on, so maybe that's enough on that. But it does look nice, doesn't it? Anyway, so that's the 2 of them that we're going to give away. Now, the other little lad, I just want to show you because they're easy to pop out. Now, you won't save your little dish, obviously, and you might have to cut it out, actually. Come to think of it, I'm not sure how to get it. That'll be comes to it, I actually don't know how to get it out. You can tell that these are new. I'd say you tear them, or cut them with the scissors or something. Oh yeah. All because you just don't want to wreck the little cake, you know, because they're still, like they're cool, but they're still warm, you know. So there you go. But look, isn't that better than trying to get out of it less a tin and the whole thing stuck to itself? So, oh, the raspberries smell really nice, actually. Oh, I'm putting the kettle on there now, and we're all having tea. Righto. So I just didn't want to do that and then try and get it out and the whole thing would be smudged. Do you know what I mean? It would look ridiculous. Anyway, so they're all icing sugar there now. So that's nice. I'm just going to cut it. I think this was the one. Now, it's still warm. Like, don't get me wrong, I shouldn't be cutting it at all. And we'll all end up with chronic indigestion eating them too hot. But it's nice. Oh, just looking for a raspberry. Surely we have a raspberry in the house. There's one there. This must be the last one where we had not enough raspberries there. Now you see the raspberry through. Actually, it's nice. Will I keep cutting? Will I cut the whole thing? Maybe. Well, look, no, you're probably enough there. I'll just get the kettle on. Righty-ho. Cheerio. Until the next time. Thank you from Delicious Cookery School.